After winning a few arcade tournaments and programming a few games, Scott Miller became a freelance gaming journalist. But after a number of reviews, Miller thought he'd figured out what made a game work. So he set out to form his own company, Apogee, in which he would publish the games he made on bulletin board systems. As a precursor to the modern internet, bulletin boards allowed him to host game files on his own computer and let others download them as they willed. Digital distribution in its earliest form. But as with other programmers making shareware, he found that asking for donations didn't lead to much income. His big break came with a simple change in business model. Instead of releasing the whole game for free, he would only release a portion for free and then charge the player if they wanted to play the rest. This Apogee model was years ahead of its time and was the start of the modern practice of releasing demos. When the first game to use this model, Kingdom of Kraus, became a smash hit, he knew he was ready to take the next step into serious game development. And to help him make the jump, he brought on board his second employee, his old high school buddy, George Broussard, in 1990. The next few years would see the company skyrocket, as Broussard created a character that would become an icon, and as they published the very first title in gaming's biggest genre. Miller had been reaching out to various developers in order to publish their games. To do that, he had to play a lot of games, and in 1990 he played one called Dangerous Dave. He liked it a lot, but noticed that the makers worked for Softdisk, a studio so paranoid that they actually read their programmers' fan mail to make sure no rival studio wanted to hire them. To get around Softdisk's censorship, he sent the game designer 4 different fan letters, each signed with a different name. But all 4 of them asked the designer to respond to him, all at the exact same phone number and address. Softdisk didn't catch on and let the man see his letters. In fact, even he didn't realize the duplication until he saw the same address in a gaming magazine about Miller. Finally putting 2 and 2 together, he picked up his pen and wrote back a response. His name was John Romero. Romero and his associates, John Carmack, Tom Hall, and Adrian Carmack, liked what Miller was proposing, and so they set out to make a game that Apogee would publish online. The result was Commander Keen in December 1990, which was an instant success. Apogee was happy, they had a hit on their hands. Romero, Hall, and the 2 unrelated Carmacks were even more happy and left Softdisk to found their own company, id Software. As id continued to pump out Commander Keen titles for their new publisher, Apogee was on a roll. 1991 was a big year for the company. Miller and Broussard were more than just marketers. They kept heavily involved in the game development process of their outside partners. As their business was booming, they had plenty of games to produce. One of these was Monuments of Mars, which helped change gaming forever by taking something out: lives. No more game over screens. The player could keep playing as long as he wanted without worrying about how many lives remained. This philosophy has eventually made its way into all modern games. That same year would see the release of several other games, including a little side-scroller with a blonde dude named Duke. Duke Nukem followed the same formula as most 2D shooters, but did it with a sense of personality and macho vibe that other games couldn't touch. The story, such as it was suitably ridiculous. The nefarious Dr. Proton had been madly making malevolent mechs to meddle in man's domain, and only a dude with more testosterone than brains could possibly stop him. It was a big hit for Apogee at the time, selling between 60 and 70,000 copies. But Apogee's next big title would make that macho look weenie. In 1992, Apogee released id Software's latest game, which was just another shooter. Except, there was just something a little odd about it. No, it wasn't the crazy Nazi sorcerers. No, it wasn't the great weapon selection. And it wasn't the beautifully designed maps and top-notch graphics either. No, what they had made was an absolute revelation. A first-person shooter. Technically, shooters from the first-person perspective had been made before, dating all the way back to Maze War and Spacem in 1974. But all these had been on obscure platforms that never reached broad distribution. By 1992, DOS and Windows were dominant, and id's game was the first FPS to hit a globally accepted operating system. Wolfenstein 3D was a firestorm. Released with the Apogee model, it would go on to be the company's biggest seller to date. Duke Nukem, a successful title, had earned them about $15,000 a month. Wolfenstein made them $200,000 a month for a year and a half. There was nothing else like it, and Apogee had it exclusively. If there was any lingering doubt that digital distribution was a serious publishing option, Wolfenstein blew it away like a Nazi prison guard. But inadvertently, Wolfenstein's biggest casualty was 2D gaming. In 1993, Apogee released Duke Nukem 2 to find that it hardly did better than the first Duke. All around the world, developers and publishers were switching to the third dimension. Wolfenstein had showed them the way to gaming's future. But to Apogee's horror, id would not be going there with them. For all its bleeding-edge distribution methods, Apogee was still taking orders by phone or paper mail. The id team realized that simply digitizing the whole process would save the consumer time and effort and lead to increased sales. But even when id brought this up to their publisher, Apogee didn't evolve with the times. Seeing no other option, id abandoned Apogee and decided to self-publish their next game, a title that would forever change the gaming industry and give Apogee the motivation they needed to reach the top. Tune in next time to see how Duke became the king.